Okay, so this is to help you recognize whether a substance is soluble or insoluble using these solubility rules, which are on your page 8 in the booklet that has been emailed out to you. Okay, so first off, what we might do is consider sodium chloride. So we're going to look on these solubility rules and have a look at the chloride part. All chlorides are soluble except silver chloride and lead chloride. So if we think of sodium chloride, then that must be soluble. So I'm going to write that down here. This means that if we get some sodium chloride solid and put it into water, it will dissolve in the water and form a sodium chloride solution. Our next one is silver chloride. So once again, we're going to go back to the chlorides, but silver chloride is one of our exceptions. So that means that it's not soluble, it is insoluble. So if we get some silver chloride solid and pop it into water, it will not dissolve. The solid will not disappear, it will just stay there. A solution will not form. Magnesium sulfate is our next example. Let's go to the sulfates. There it is there. All sulfates are soluble except calcium, lead, and barium. Well, magnesium's not on that list there, so it must be soluble. So magnesium sulfate is soluble. If we take magnesium sulfate solid and put it into water and stir it, of course, it will dissolve and the solid disappears while it's doing that, and a magnesium sulfate solution will form. Lead sulfate, if we have a look here, there's the sulfates once again. Lead sulfate is one of the exceptions, which means it is insoluble. Lead sulfate will not dissolve in water. Sodium hydroxide. Let's go to the hydroxides. This one changes. Instead of saying all hydroxides are soluble, it says insoluble there. So we're actually saying the majority of the hydroxide solids do not dissolve in water. But there are some, like potassium hydroxide and sodium hydroxide will. We're looking for sodium hydroxide that is soluble. Sodium hydroxide will dissolve in water. Lead hydroxide. It is not one of the exceptions here, so therefore it must be insoluble. Lead hydroxide will not dissolve in water. It will not form a solution. Calcium hydroxide. Oh, yep, calcium hydroxide. Here we go, hydroxides. Calcium is not on the exception, so it must be insoluble in water. For you guys at this point in time. Okay, so that's a little indication of how you do solubility. Remember, if the solid dissolves in water, it is soluble. If it does dissolve in water, then it will form a solution. For instance, sodium chloride will dissolve in water to form a sodium chloride solution.